Hello, everyone. My name is Denise with Astronotes by Denise, and this is an Intro to Astrology class. And I'm so glad to see all of you here. And if you're catching the replay, I hope you enjoy it. I'll try to leave timestamps so you know when to tune in for things. And yeah, so I'm currently at Less Stress in Calgary. It's a clinic in the Northwest where they do massage, energy work, a bunch of different healing modalities, and they have crystal bowls and do sound baths. So I do my in-person readings from here. So if you're ever interested in anything like that, I would love to see you here. Otherwise, I'm quite active online, as I think many people have kind of found me through Instagram. So it's nice to see you guys and share space. So why don't we just start with some introduction, since we have a nice kind of smaller group here. I think we can just spend a little bit of time just going around saying hi and maybe what drew you to this class. So I think it might be easier if I just call out names, and then and no pressure. Like if you don't want to say anything, you can just say pass. Like this is a safe space. Okay, so let's start with Kaylee. I know she is always ready to shine, Leo star.
Oh wow, thank you. I don't feel like a Leo star today, but thank you for saying that. So yeah, I'm Kaylee. I also live in Calgary. As Denise said, I work for a company called Solea, and I started dabbling in astrology back in like March 2020. It was kind of my like lockdown project. So when I saw that Denise was doing this masterclass, I'm like, wow, this will be an awesome way for me to maybe learn a little bit more, some things that I don't know yet, um, and see Denise again because it's been a while. So yeah, that's why I wanted to come.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. So nice to see you.
Nice seeing you too.
All right, I'll pass it off to Jennifer if you're ready.
Hi, my name is Jennifer. I'm from San Antonio, Texas, and I've always been interested in the moons and the stars and the constellations. So I've always been interested in astrology. I found Denise through, I don't know, how did I find you? Google? I don't know how I found you, but anyways,
Maybe Facebook?
Either way, yeah, Facebook, you crossed my path. So here I am, but I am a massage doula here in San Antonio. So primarily my work is in that area. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Jennifer.
Nice
It's so
meeting
good to see
you.
you. Awesome. I'll pass it to Carol.
Hi, yeah, I do some sound healing work right now. So I work with some of the planets, but I've always had an interest more in astrology. I took a beginner class a few years ago, but never really kept up on it and stuff. So the esoteric astrology, but I'd like to learn a little bit more on how I can support myself through what I'm going through, the progressive charts and stuff.
Wonderful. Thank you, Carol. Awesome. I'll pass it to Donna.
Hi, I'm from Calgary as well. I've kind of been meddling around with a few different things over the years, and I hurt both of my shoulders a few years ago. So I haven't been able to do the work I was doing previously. So I've gotten into dowsing, and I've done healing touch for a number of years, but of course that's not really in right now because we can't touch anybody. I do work online with some people. What else? Hypnotherapy. I've been doing that for about 5 years. I don't love it as much. So I'm kind of just letting that who wants to see me can see me. I'm not really putting it out there. It's fine. It's just not enough, right? And I've been thinking about astrology for a while because I'm finding that the more I get into dowsing and listening to other people talk, that this would be a good fit for me to understand a little more. I have had a couple of charts done over the years, but I never really understood it. So I sort of need a really easy beginning to wherever it's going. So that's where I am right now.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Donna. Welcome.
Thank you.
I'll pass it to Roxanne next.
Hi, I'm Roxanne. This is all totally new to me. So I'm just excited and thankful to sit in and start learning.
Awesome. Welcome, Roxanne. Thank you for coming. And I'll pass it to Hannah.
Hi, my name's Hannah, and I think I found your account from Instagram a while back, and I was looking forward to joining this class because, well, I love your work, and I figured there was a lot of great things in store for it.
Yay. Thank you so much, Hannah. It's so nice to like connect like this. It's nice to
Yeah.
share space. So it's awesome. All right, I'll pass it off to the mother-daughter duo.
Hi, Denise. Hello, everyone. My name's Monica, and I met Denise last year. We were both taking a channeling course together, and I'm a lover of the earth and the stars and the sun, and I'm intrigued by what Denise is up to around intuitive astrology. So that's certainly what draws me here today.
I'm Portia. I learned about you, Denise, about 4 hours ago through my mom, but I'm very interested in your work and I've listened a lot to what she said, so I'm really excited to listen in today.
Awesome. Oh, it's so nice to meet you and so nice to share space, and thank you and welcome. Yay.
Thanks to you, Denise. Thanks for bringing us together and your generosity.
Of course, my pleasure. All right, I'm going to pass it to Julia next. Are you there, Julia? If not, it's okay. We can come back and see if she's here. Okay, so I'll pass it to Elif. If you want to introduce yourself.
Hello. Yes, I'm Denise's mother. So I'm recently starting to get interested in astrology. So I like to learn more. I'm into creative writing. So in astrology, there are a lot of topics. So I'm here to learn. Nice to meet you all. Thank you.
Thanks, Mom. So nice that you're here. And yeah, we've got two mother-daughter duos happening.
Yes.
Well, actually trio, because my sister's here, and that's the last person on the list. Filiz, if you want to introduce yourself, you can. If you don't want to, that's fine too.
Hi. Yeah, I just helped Deniz out with Astronauts. So nice to meet everyone.
Awesome. Great. Okay. Wonderful. So thank you, everybody. And yeah, Julia, like if you want to type something in the chat as well too, you're welcome to do a little introduction there. Yeah, so I sent out a little packet for us too, so I can just kind of open it up quickly, just so that we can take a look at it together, and then I'll probably remove it after that. So just give me 1 second while I pop that open for us. So this was the little booklet here. So I'm just going to the second page just to show you guys our rough agenda for today. So we've done the welcome, the introductions, and I'll do a quick little meditation with all of us just so that we can get into the same frequency. And then I'll move on to the lecture piece of it, where it'll be handy at this point to have your birth chart, so that you can kind of follow along. And I'll go over what exactly is a birth chart, and how to read it, and just going over the basics, the signs, the houses, and the planets. So this is a very introductory class, and there's a lot to learn about astrology. It definitely takes more than an hour and a half to learn all about astrology, but hopefully what you'll get out of the end of this session is a better understanding of what exactly we're looking at when we're looking at a birth chart, and hopefully a little bit of clues as to how you can do your own research into your chart. And astrology really is a lifelong study. I'm still studying it, so yeah, don't worry if there's still a lot of question marks. I guarantee that there will be a lot of question marks still at the end of this, but I'm here to support. We'll also end kind of with some questions and answers. And so that will be your time to ask any questions about your chart or anything that we covered. And then, yeah, and then we'll close. So that's our plan for today. And in this booklet, just a little bit of bio background on me. I'm an intuitive astrologer. I've been studying astrology for over 10 years and have my Astronotes business. It's been almost 2 years, I think now, doing this work. My day job is a researcher. I work in the social sector. And yeah, just we have some information on the birth chart. We have the symbols of the zodiac. We have the planetary symbols, and then just a thank you page at the end. So yeah, I'm going to stop sharing now so that we can transition into the meditation portion of it. But before I go into the meditation, were there any questions about kind of the structure of how today is going to flow? Okay, all right. So everybody, just get comfortable wherever you are. Just taking some time here now, closing your eyes. And just deepening your breath, rolling your shoulders back, sitting with a nice, long, tall spine. And just focusing on your breathing. Deepening your inhale. Really filling your lungs. And exhaling, releasing all of the tension in your body. Just focusing on having a nice, steady flow of breath, nice, long, deep inhales and exhales. Coming to your body. And from here, setting the intention to receive the information that will serve your highest growth and your highest evolution for the highest good of all. Perhaps even inviting in your higher self to the space here to receive cosmic downloads through the language of the stars and the planets. I call the white light of Source to overlight our session today and to keep us all in a high frequency and illuminate our paths and illuminate all that is ready to be revealed for our highest good. And when you're ready, gently coming back to the space, wiggling your toes, wiggling your fingers, gently blinking your eyes open. Wonderful. Thank you for being open to that, everybody. It's nice to get into the zone together. And so I recommend just having both the handout and your charts ready. And just any pen and paper if you have any to take any notes. And I'm going to just have a sample chart up for us to kind of work through together. So first of all, why astrology? Well, all of you are curious about astrology. That's why you're here. But I just like to share about astrology, for me personally, why I like astrology and why I find astrology to be such a powerful tool. Astrology speaks through symbolism. it is really the language of the stars and the planets. And it has a lot of archetypes. It works with elemental energy as well, too: fire, air, water, and earth. Those are the 4 elements in astrology. And astrology can help us understand ourselves better and other people better as well, because it reveals all facets of our personality. What most people know about astrology, unless they're into astrology, is just their sun sign. So, okay, I was born October 22nd, that makes me a Libra, and that's it. Actually, it's not that. It goes much, much, much more beyond that. And so this is when the birth chart comes in. The birth chart is a map of the sky the moment you were born. So it takes into account where was the sun, where was the moon, where was Venus and Mars and Mercury, all at the moment of your birth. And so this is kind of a 2D representation of that specific moment. That's why it's great if you have your birth time, because then you can really anchor that in and get that whole visual representation of what's going on. And so, yeah, we have the zodiac signs, the 12 zodiac signs that we're all familiar with, like Aries, Libra, Leo. And those are constellations, and they form what's called the zodiac belt that goes around our solar system. So, you know, our solar system, our planet, the planets are all moving around and moving through this zodiac belt. And yeah, so that's all of the symbols on the outside here are those 12 zodiac signs, so the different constellations. And what we'll see is that we actually have all 12 signs within us. So like I was saying as an example, like, oh, I'm a Libra sun, but you can take into account, okay, where was Mars? What sign was that in? It's also in one of the 12 zodiac signs, same with Venus, same with Jupiter, same with Pluto. So in this way, we actually take many different zodiac signs within our being. And the different planets represent different aspects of our psyche. And so I'll go through all the planets one by one. I'll go through all of the signs one by one. I just want to kind of give a general overview first of what the birth chart is. And so we have the 12 zodiac signs on the outside of the chart. And you can check against the handout as well that I have to see what the symbols correspond to. And you can even just take like a quick look and say, oh, it seems like I have a lot of stuff happening in Leo or in Cancer. And all of the symbols on the inside, those are all the symbols for the planets. And also on the handout, there's a sheet that has the symbols and the planet correspondences as well. And then we have all of these pie slices here. You see these like triangular shapes here, and there's 12 of them. And these are the houses of astrology. So the signs show how we express the energy because they're like actors, they're like different characters. The planets represent different aspects of our psyche, different aspects of our being. For example, the moon being our emotional self. And so for this example, like the moon is in Pisces, so this person expresses their emotions in a Piscean way. And then the houses represent the different areas of our life. So for example, the 7th house is the house of relationships, the 10th house is the house of career. So each of the houses represent different areas of our life. And I see Esther came in. Welcome, Esther. We're just going over the natal chart. And if you have your birth chart ready and your handout, that would be wonderful. Great. And so there's the 12 houses, and I'll go one by one through the houses as well, too. And then we have the rising sign, which some of you might have heard, like the sun, moon, and rising being the big 3. So the rising sign is the sign that was on the horizon the moment you were born, like regardless of what time you were born. And so they say with the rising sign, this is the sign that you are going to rise into. As you age, you're going to become more and more of your rising sign. You're going to embody that more and more. And it's also how you interact with the world. It's kind of that first layer, the first impression that you give off, the aura, kind of the vibe that you have, and how people perceive you initially, and how you view the world and how the world views you. That's what the rising sign represents. And that's actually in this area of the chart right here where I'm showing the first house, and you can even see the sign that it's in. In this case, it's Virgo. So you can even write that down. If you're curious about that, just see like, oh, my rising sign is in Virgo. You can just jot that down, because that can be something that you can look into a little bit more if you're curious about this. Oh, how do I, what's my aura? What's my vibe? How do I interact with the world? There's a lot of information with the rising sign. So I'll just give a little minute in case anybody's writing that down. And the rising sign is important because it sets the stage for the rest of the chart. So in this example, the rising sign is Virgo. So this person is, has that Virgo energy kind of kicking it off, that initial impression, how they interact with the world. And then the next house, it follows zodiacal order. Libra follows Virgo. So then we move in a counterclockwise direction with the natal chart. So then the second house is ruled by Libra. The third house is ruled by Scorpio, and so on and so forth. So the rising sign is the one that kind of leads and sets up the stage for the rest of the houses. And so, like I mentioned, the rising sign, that was the sign that was on the horizon when you were born. So like the rising sun kind of position. Exactly opposite to that is the sunset point of your chart. And so that was the sign that was on the descendant. Instead of ascendant, rising sign, it's the descendant. And so while the rising sign represents you, who you are, how you're interacting with the world, how the world views you, the descendant, which is the opposite sign of the rising sign, is your ideal partner, your spouse. And it doesn't mean that they have to be, like, for example, in this chart, it's Pisces. It doesn't mean that that person has to be a Pisces sun, but they could have Pisces energy or embody the Pisces archetype, which is the mystic and the poet and the healer. So astrology doesn't only talk about ourselves, it actually talks about the people in our lives as well. So it's kind of interesting. So that's the sunset point. And so what we have here too is the top part of the chart is the daytime. So that's the day sky. And so this person was born during the day. That's why her sun, the circle with the circle inside, is in the top part of the chart. And the bottom part of the chart is the nighttime part of the chart. So that's the night sky, what the night sky looked like the moment you were born. And so if you were born at night, then the sun would be in the bottom half of the chart. And there's lots of symbolism there too. Like the daytime part of the chart is what's visible to the world. That's what people can see about you. That's what's out in the open. And if you have any planets at the bottom of the chart, that's more private, that's more hidden. Not everybody gets to see that. It's the more personal side of yourself. So if somebody has a lot of planets in the top half of the chart, that to me shows somebody who's like very engaged with the world, who's, maybe even like, kind of well known in their communities. Maybe they're very active on social media. They're very much like involved with the world at large. Whereas somebody who has a lot of planets, if they have most of their planets in the bottom half, it's like somebody who's more internal, who's more private, who's more of a homebody. So there's all of that. So like I said, the rising sign, that's the sunrise point. The descendant, the opposite side, is the sunset point. And the top part of this chart, actually we can see this here with MC, the midheaven, that is the point, the highest point, that's the noon point of the sky. So that's whatever constellation was there at that noon point. And its opposite, the icy, is, you can just like draw like exactly, just draw a line straight down. That's called, it's called the IC, and that's the most private part of yourself. That's who you are at home. Like when you're not out in the world, that's who you are at home. So the sign that's in the IC shows kind of who you are in that private sphere. And the MC, the midheaven, shows who you are in the public sphere. So MC is how the public sees you. So we did talk about the rising sign, like about how other people perceive you, but that's kind of more like when you're interacting with them, just like then and there. The MC is more about your reputation. It's more about your image. And this kind of ties into career as well too. It's like your social status and yeah, just how you present yourself to the public. So yeah, so we have those 4 angles. They're called angles in astrology: the rising sign, the descendant, the midheaven, and the IC. Those are the 4 angles. So those are kind of like major points in our personality as well, right? Like, who are we? Where are we from? Right? That's the IC, our home life. Where are we from? What's our roots? What's our ancestry? Who are we in our innermost core self? And then the descendant, who's our partner, who's our spouse. And this could also be business partners as well too. And then the MC is like, what do you do? Like, what are you known for? So those are the 4 angles in astrology that we see in the natal chart as well too. So yeah, maybe I'll just give like a quick minute too, if you guys want to just make any notes, like what rising sign you have, what your MC is in, your midheaven, and your descendant. And then your IC, I know it doesn't show up on here, but it's going to be the opposite sign to your MC. And so if you guys have any questions, like just feel free to pop it in the chat. I just want to leave you guys with like things that you can go research on your own after too. So yeah. And you can take a look at your handouts and find out which signs that is. And I'm just going to refill my water. I'll be back in 2 seconds. Okay. Is everyone okay? Are there any questions? Okay. I can't see the chat on here. Oh yeah, I don't see anything on here, so. Great, yeah, if there's any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat at any time. I'm here, so. I know it's a lot of information, so you can slow me down at any time.
I have a question. What are the colors? What is the red lines?
I'll get there. That's a great
question. Blue lines. Like, what are those?
Yeah, that's an awesome question. So those are called aspects. And they show the relationship between the planets, between the different aspects of our psyche. So the red lines, and don't get discouraged if you have a lot of red lines, like we all have red lines. Red lines are more challenging aspects. And so we can experience this in our life as kind of like tension. You know, I'm sure we've all felt this before, like one part of you really wants something and then the other part of you wants the opposite thing. That's kind of what that shows. It's like that tension. The red lines. It's areas of growth and opportunity as well. And then the blue lines are smooth energies, like these planets are working together, they're harmonious, they're supporting each other. So hopefully that answers your question, Jennifer. There's a lot to go into aspects, but yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. So all right, so I think now I'm going to go into the signs and then the planets and the houses now. So, because I think we've gotten kind of the understanding what we're exactly looking at with the natal chart. It's a map of the sky the moment you were born. And it, it reveals the different points in the sky, like the sunrise, noon, the sunset, and oh yeah, I forgot to mention the IC is like kind of that midnight point in the sky. And also I want to just scroll down here and show you, if you have a chart with astro.com, you can generate one for free, or I can generate one for you. Here you can see like it has the symbols here as well too. Like, so this is the sun. And then in the blue here, it shows which sign it's in. It just has the first 3 letters of it, but you can figure it out. Like sun is in Gemini, moon is in Pisces, so on and so forth. So that will also help you when you're kind of trying to decipher things. And yeah. Okay, so I'll talk about the signs now. Like I said, we have all of the signs within us. Even these houses that are empty, like we see that there's no planets there, all that means is that that's not an area of focus in this lifetime. It's still important, but the other areas that have planets in them are much more active in this lifetime. Astrology also it's a map of your soul. It's a map of past, present, and future. It shows your past lives. It shows the present moment, and it shows your future. It shows your where your soul's headed. So all of this information is in here. And what you'll find with astrology is sometimes you're like, oh, I actually overcame this, or and other things like they haven't happened yet. So it's a tool that you can like use for your whole life. And the path is a spiral. So you'll find yourself kind of encountering the same themes over and over again as well. So, okay, let's go into the signs. So the signs, like I said, those are the 12 zodiac signs. They're constellations. They form the zodiac belt around our solar system, and they represent different archetypes. And they have their own personalities. They're like the actors, like I mentioned. They're different characters, different personas, and they have their shadow and their light, all of them. And they also have each their own journey of evolution. So I'm going to start with Aries, because Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. And if you have a lot of Aries energy in your chart, you can see like, oh, there's a lot of planets here. That energy is going to be important for you to learn and master in this lifetime, especially embodying the light qualities of Aries. So Aries is the warrior. Aries is a leader. Aries is a pioneer. Aries is a fire sign. And like I mentioned, there's the 4 elements in astrology, and fire being one of them. It represents spirit. It represents vitality, life force, creativity. And so Aries also has all of those characteristics as well, being a fire sign. And it's a cardinal quality, which is all about leadership and starting projects, having that initiative. So that's a bit about Aries. And it's the archetype is the warrior, like I mentioned. So some shadow, I guess I'll talk about the light and the shadow of the signs. There's a lot to go into for each of them, but just overview, Aries can be a little bit impatient sometimes. It's that fire sign energy. And also, yeah, like really wanting to do things its own way, which, can have its light and shadow as well. And that leadership, the light and shadow of that, sometimes it can be a little bit bossy. But of course, it depends on the individual, where they're at with their own journey and their level of maturity, right? And how they harness that power and use it appropriately. Next, we move on to Taurus. Taurus is the bull. And Taurus is ruled by Venus, the goddess of love, of beauty. And it's an earth sign, so it's very grounded, very sensual. Some of the archetypes with Taurus are the farmer, the builder. Taurus likes to make slow and steady progress. And it's very persistent and committed. And it's a fixed sign. So that's where that persistence and commitment come from, that fixed modality. And and then we have Gemini, and Gemini has the archetypes of the trickster, of the storyteller, of the communicator, of the journalist. Gemini is all about communicating, all about sharing information and learning. They're very, very curious, and they're very intelligent as well and able to hold a lot of information in their minds. They're ruled by Mercury, the planet of intellect and communication. So they're very, very blessed in that domain, and very quick thinking as well, because Mercury is the fastest moving planet in our solar system. It's the closest one to the sun. And yeah, that's Gemini energy. And it's a mutable sign, so it's very adaptable and flexible. So it's a mutable modality. And the element is air. So again, the mind, communication. And then we move on to Cancer. And Cancer is a water sign. And it's represented by the crab. And it's cardinal. So there's only 3 modalities: cardinal, fixed, and mutable. So we're coming back to cardinal. Astrology follows the order with the modalities and with the elements. So Cancer's archetypes is the mother, the nurturer, and they're, they have very big loving hearts. They want to take care of the ones that they love. They create the home space for people. They like creating those safe spaces for the ones that they love. They're very loyal. With the water element, it's water rules the emotional body, right? So there's a lot of emotions, a lot of passion there. And Cancer is ruled by the moon. And so there's another layer of that emotionality that kind of comes in, and the moods changing with the phases of the moon. And yeah, with that cardinal energy, that leadership energy, protective energy is there as well. So we can see it's fire, earth, air, water. That's kind of the pattern that it follows. So the next is Leo. Leo's a fire sign. And Leo is the lion. It is generous. It is warm-hearted. It likes to entertain. It likes to be seen. It's very artistic and creative. And they're also really great leaders as well. Very charismatic. And it's ruled by the sun. And that's why Leos have a very large presence. I always say that Leo is the easiest sign to pick out of all of them. Like if you're to guess somebody's sign, like Leo is the easiest one to guess, just because they have so much presence. Like that's the sun, baby. We're revolving around the sun. So Leos kind of have that energy to them as well. And they're fixed element, or fixed modality, sorry. So they're, very persistent, very committed as well too, and don't really like changing course too much once they've kind of made up their mind. And then we have Virgo. And Virgo is an earth element. It's ruled by Mercury also. So Gemini and Virgo are both ruled by Mercury. So Virgo is very intelligent and practical, very realistic and grounded with that earth element. And it's mutable quality, so it's adaptable and flexible. Virgos really make great evaluators. They can catch all the details. They have a very keen eye for details. And some of Virgo's archetypes are the nurse, sacred servant. Like they like to be of service. They like to heal. They like to help. And yeah, they're very diligent, very, very diligent. And then we move on to Libra, which is an air sign, and it's ruled by Venus. So Taurus, both Taurus and Venus share, Taurus and Libra share rulership by Venus. Venus being the goddess of love and beauty. And so Venus's influence on Libra shows up as appreciation for art, appreciation for fashion, appreciation for beauty, for harmony, especially in the domain of like social relationships. Libra is all about partnerships. It's the scales. And so they're all about balance, peace, harmony, love. They don't like when the boat is rocked. They want things to be harmonious and smooth. And they're great like diplomats, great judges, great mediators. Yeah, and they're just, harmony is definitely their key word for sure. And then we move on to, oh yeah, and the modality is cardinal. So they have that leadership energy as well too. They're very charismatic and they know how to work with people. And then we have Scorpio. And Scorpio is a water sign. And it is fixed modality ruled by Mars. So the fixed modality of Scorpio makes it very determined, very focused, very persistent. Whatever it wants, it will go to the end to get it. It's very committed and loyal. And as a water sign, very deep, very in tune with emotions. All of the water signs are highly intuitive. Doesn't mean that the other signs don't have that ability, but that falls under the water domain of being able to kind of like tap in to psychic abilities. And and they're deep feelers, but they're also very defensive and protective. They have that stinger, right? Because they're the scorpion. They make excellent detectives, investigators, and also shamans, because Scorpio doesn't mind going to the underworld. It's ruled by Mars and by Pluto, and Pluto is Hades, the god of the underworld. So Scorpio actually dives into the underworld and does the healing, does the transmutation, and comes back out. And sometimes Scorpio can get lost in the darkness. They like the darkness, but it's important that they come out and use those gifts that they have for healing and transformation. They're also ruled by Mars, so they've got that drive, that ambition, that power. Aries is also ruled by Mars. I didn't mention that earlier. So there's that warrior spirit as well that Scorpio carries. And then we move on to Sagittarius, which is a fire sign, mutable quality. So lots of vivaciousness with Sagittarius, a strong sense of adventure, freedom lover all the way. And they're also very adaptable, go with the flow, flexible with that mutable quality. It's ruled by Jupiter, which is the planet of luck, good fortune, abundance, opportunity. So Sagittarius has a very carefree spirit about them. And they're seekers. They want to know everything. And they love philosophy, foreign culture, foreign languages, anything to expand the mind. They're really into that, and their horizons, through physical adventuring as well. And they're the sign of the philosopher, of the nomad, of the seeker. And then we move on to Capricorn. And Capricorn is an earth sign. It's ruled by Saturn, and the modality is cardinal. So Capricorn being an earth sign, it's very practical, very grounded, very sensible. Being a cardinal quality, it's total manager, boss energy. And then Saturn is the planet of time, the lord of time, the lord of karma. And so and Saturn also represents restrictions and boundaries, limitations in some ways, but it's all for our highest good, because Saturn really acts like a parent in this system here. So Capricorn also has that kind of innate maturity about them, and they make these decisions for the long term, and they plan, and very ambitious and very successful. And they have just this wisdom about them, kind of beyond their years. And then moving on to Aquarius. So Aquarius is the sign of the water bearer, ruled by Uranus and by Saturn. So it shares Saturn with Capricorn. And it is an air sign. So this is common. People think it's a water sign because it's the water bearer, but it's actually an air sign. And so Aquarius, with that air element, it's all about the mind, all about communication. And it's also a fixed modality. So they're very persistent, very committed as well. And with Aquarius, it's got that mad scientist energy. They're kind of like the geniuses. They do things differently. They're kind of like aliens. This comes up a lot, but it's because they carry that frequency of not really from this time. They're ahead of their time. And especially being ruled by Uranus, which is the great liberator. And it brings us downloads and flashes of insight. It shows us where we want to be rebellious in our lives. It's ruled by that. So it has that kind of, very out there energy. And your Aquarius is very motivated by humanitarianism, by the group, by the collective, by social causes. So yeah, that's about Aquarius. And we're, you know, some say that we're in the age of Aquarius right now, and we're seeing all of this technology, we're seeing all of, and especially nowadays, all this stuff online and connecting with community. And then the last sign of the zodiac is Pisces, and Pisces is a water sign, and it's mutable quality, and it's ruled by Jupiter and by Neptune. So it shares Jupiter with Sagittarius. And Pisces is, like I mentioned earlier, the poet, the mystic, the artist, the healer. They're very compassionate. Yeah, like their hearts are so big. They're a water sign, right? So they're very empathic, very nurturing, very loving. And yeah, whenever I think of Pisces energy, I just think of a wide, vast ocean. It's like so endless. It's really like this energy of oneness that Pisces naturally taps into. And this is partly because Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac. And as the last sign of the zodiac, it's actually gone through already all of the other signs. So that's why it has that empathy, because it's actually experienced it all. Aries is like the baby of the zodiac, they say, because Aries is the first sign. It starts it off. And by the time we get to Pisces, Pisces has kind of experienced all of the signs. So it has this deep compassion and empathy. Boundaries are very important for Pisces, though, because sometimes, you know, they're in this, oh, we're all one energy, but it's important to remember that we have an ego and we're here and we have needs as well, right? So that's about the signs. There's so much more I could go into about the signs. Like I usually dedicate just like one class purely on the signs, where we go deeper into the archetypes and everything. But hopefully that kind of gives you an overview of all of the signs. And like, you know, if you notice that you have a concentration point, or like, you know, any planets, like what I said is relevant to you. That's how, you know, you carry that archetype and that character. We carry all of them within us, but if you have planets there, then it's really really important for you to get familiar with that energy. So are there any questions about the signs before I move to the planets and houses? Okay, I know it's a lot of information, so you guys are doing really great. I think, you know, sometimes people are expecting, oh yeah, I'm gonna just learn it all. Like, no, it takes a lot of time, and astrology is honestly, it's about memorizing keywords and concepts and being able to link them together. That's what astrology is about. So once you know what the signs are about, once you know what the planets are about, once you know what the houses are about, and you've memorized that, then you can kind of start linking it together and creating these interpretations from it, or just going online and searching, because there's lots on there, or working with an astrologer who will do all that research for you and just tell you exactly what you need to know. All right, so let's move on to the planets. And so you have the handout as well too, with all the planetary glyphs. Just like I mentioned, there's at the bottom of the chart here, if you have an astro.com chart. And so I'm going to start, I'll probably just go in the order that it is in the handout as well too. So we have the sun. So that's the circle with the circle inside. And yeah, that, you know, is determined on your birthday. So what day, month, year you were born. And that's where the planet, that's where the sun was positioned the moment you were born. So that's the most common thing when people say like, oh, I'm a Libra, that's usually what they're referring to, is like their sun sign. And so the sun represents our identity. It's the biggest part of, well, it's the biggest being in our solar system, right? And it's also the biggest part of our chart. So that's like the sun sign has a lot of influence. It's the sun, moon, and rising that have the biggest influence on our personalities. And we already talked about the rising sign. So the sun represents our identity. It represents our purpose. It also represents the father energy, right? Because the sun is the father, father son. And it represents vitality, nourishment, like creativity, life force. Yes, that's the sun energy. That's like who we're meant to be here on this planet. So like learning about the archetype that it's in, the sign that it's in, learning about the shadow and the light will be helpful, I think. And then we have the moon. So that's just the crescent moon. The moon is our emotional self, and it represents the mother and our matrilineal line. And yeah, it's just the innermost aspect of ourselves. So not everybody gets to see our moon sign. It depends the sign that it's in, but usually this is kind of more of our private self. So you have to be friends with someone or like closer with someone to see their emotional world, right? If they're going to be vulnerable and share that with you. So the moon shows what we need to feel emotionally secure, what we need to feel emotionally stable, and how we process our emotions, how we feel our emotions. So the sign that it's in, and we already went through the signs, gives you an idea of what your moon type is, like what your moon personality is. So you can look at your moon sign. That's definitely something worth researching. The rising sign, sun sign, moon sign. If there's nothing else that you guys research, like just research those three things, because those are the big three that they call them in astrology. And yeah, so check the sign that it's in, and of course the house that it's in, but we'll get into the houses in a bit. And then moving on to Mercury. So now we're going to go from the closest planet to the sun to the farthest planet from the sun. So Mercury represents the mind, like I mentioned. It rules Gemini and it rules Virgo. And Mercury is the messenger god, Hermes. And yeah, it's all about how we like to communicate, what we like to learn, what we like to talk about. That's all in Mercury. It's our mind, how we think, how we communicate, what we like to learn, what we like to talk about, how we talk, how do we express ourselves that way. So check the sign that it's in to see how that energy gets expressed. And then we have Venus. And Venus is the goddess of love, like I mentioned, ruling Taurus and Libra. And yeah, Venus is my favorite, but I'm a Libra, so of course I would say that. And this is the Venus gong. I don't know if you guys can hear that at all, but Venusian frequencies. And yeah, there's a lot to say about Venus. I'm very passionate about Venus because there's a lot of amazing teachings that have come from that planet. But that's definitely another topic on its own. But if you're interested in ancient Egypt or anything like that, Venus is definitely a key player. So Venus shows how we love, what we desire. It shows us what relationship style we like, what we need. So if you're curious about love life at all, you definitely should be looking at your Venus sign, because it shows you like how you are in relationships and what you need in relationships. So that's all about love and friendships. And it also corresponds with money as well too, but that's tying into what we value, what we desire, right? So what are we spending our money on, or, you know, what's important to us? And then we move on to Mars. So Mars is that masculine symbol. And yeah, Mars is the warrior. So total masculine energy, whereas Venus was the feminine energy, and Venus is Aphrodite. Mars is Aries, the god of war, total masculine energy, and all about strength, all about getting what you want. So Venus shows us what we desire. Mars shows us how we get what we desire. How do we assert ourselves? What's our, like, you know, even our energy drive like? Yeah, and how do we deal with conflict? How do we express our anger? That sort of thing is all under Mars's domain. So check the sign that it's in to learn more about that. And then we have Jupiter. So before we go to Jupiter, Mercury, Venus, and Mars, those are considered inner planets. They're closer to Earth, so they have more impact on us. So like I said, Sun, moon, and rising, those have the biggest impact on us because those are the big three. Then it's Mars, Venus, and Mercury that have like that's the next layer. So they have more impact on us because they move faster, they're closer to us. Now, as we get into Jupiter and the planets after that, it's more generational. So people your age will all have the same placements because these planets move much more slowly. So it's more about like how your generation will, what your generation will contribute to the world and how they view the world. It still impacts us, but now it's the sign is kind of a little bit less important. What becomes more important is the house placement that it's in. That's how you get more of that personal analysis, because the sign placement, like for example, Jupiter being in Leo in this chart, that's something that's kind of common to people in that age group. So Jupiter is the planet of abundance, of good fortune, of luck. And so when we embody kind of the sign that Jupiter is in, we attract good luck to us. And when we understand what house it's in, we can see what area of life we're going to be kind of lucky in. So yeah, Jupiter corresponds to Zeus, and it's the biggest planet in our solar system. So it's very abundant, very generous, and kind of overdoes it a little bit sometimes. And then, so that's Jupiter. And then we're moving on to Saturn. And like I mentioned earlier with Saturn ruling Capricorn, also Aquarius, Saturn represents boundaries and limitations. So wherever Saturn is in our chart, it shows us like where we'll mature in our life and what challenges we have. And it's not challenges in a bad way. It's just these initiations into maturity that present themselves. And with the symbolism of this, we know Saturn has those thick rings, right? And those rings represent those boundaries, the limitations. And yeah, like limitation isn't even a bad word. Like we need limits. Just like a parent tells the child, like, okay, you can't eat that whole bag of candy. I know you want to, but you can't. It's bad for you. That's what Saturn does for us. It brings us these strict kind of boundaries, but it's all for our highest good. And then I'm sure you've all heard of Saturn return, which that is when when Saturn returns to the same position it was the moment you were born, and that happens every 30 years. And that's an initiation into maturity. Like you feel it the most then. So the first Saturn return happens when you're around 30. That's the spiritual initiation into adulthood. The second one happens in your late 50s or so, 60. And that's more like, okay, you've done your due diligence, you've been an adult, you've done your responsibilities. Now you can kind of open up, what does retirement look like for you? Like what legacy you want to leave behind. Those are the sorts of questions that Saturn will bring. Yeah, Saturn likes to make sure that we're on track. So it will make sure that we stay on track. And then we have Uranus. That's the next one, right? Yeah, Uranus. And Uranus, like I said, rules Aquarius. And it is kind of this mad scientist energy that's the innovator, the rebel. So wherever Uranus is in your chart, it shows where you want to rebel, where you want to do things differently, where you don't want to follow the status quo, and where you might get flashes of insight and downloads, because Uranus energy operates like a lightning bolt. It just like, it gives you the downloads that you need. And then Neptune is a planet of spirituality, of creativity. Yeah, Neptune is a wonderful, dreamy planet. It's kind of mysterious. It's not very earthly. It's very transcendental, kind of connected to different planes. And there's a lot of mystique around it. But yeah, it's a beautiful, dreamy planet, and helps us connect in with our higher heart, compassion, love, and yeah, all the beautiful things around creativity like music, art. And so wherever Neptune is in your chart, it shows where you're kind of like naturally kind of a little bit more in tune spiritually, or, you know, feeling creative, empathic, that sort of thing. With Neptune energy, I will say that it is a little bit important to have, again, boundaries. Like I said, with Pisces, and have discernment, because Neptune, it's like this cloudy, nebulous energy. It's like so dreamy, like, oh, what's real, what's not real, what's fantasy, like those lines kind of get blurred with Neptune. So yeah, that's just something to pay attention with Neptunian energy, but it is beautiful, soft and gentle. And then we have Pluto. And Pluto is, like I said, Hades, rules Scorpio and Aries, god of the underworld. And wherever Pluto is in our chart, that's where we're going to have the deepest transformation in our life. That's where we're going to be reborn constantly, again and again and again throughout our lifetime. So it's a very deep placement, and we all have Pluto. So it's worth looking into if you're curious about the deeper, darker stuff. That's where you should go and check out Pluto. And like I said, like the house placement is kind of more relevant because Pluto is the slowest moving in our solar system, right? It's the farthest out. So this is really generational. So like the millennials have Pluto in Scorpio. Gen Z has Pluto in Sagittarius. Like, so it's, and like, you know, the generation before the millennials had Libra and Virgo and so on and so forth. So that's more of a generational energy when we're looking at the signs. But the house is where we're getting specific and seeing how it impacts us. And so there's two more placements. So I have we have the North Node here, which is this horseshoe. And that is your soul purpose. So if that's something you're curious about, that's really interesting to dive into. The North Node, what does that mean? Like, what is your soul purpose? Why are you here? All of those questions, that reveals that. And its opposite point, which isn't in the chart, but it's in the opposite house, opposite sign, is the South Node, and that's your past lives. And so, yeah, I can definitely help you guys with that. I love doing readings about that, actually about everything. Love is really interesting too. But yeah, and those two go together. So like it's in the opposite sign because you've already experienced the opposite. You're here to learn something new. And the North Node energy is very much new energy for our souls. Like we haven't experienced it really that much before. Like our souls are here to expand into it. And there's a tendency to want to go into the past life stuff because it's our gifts. We come in with those gifts from that sign, whatever sign it's in and whatever house it's in. But we're not supposed to be there. We're supposed to be where our North Node is and challenge ourselves in that way. So I know that's a very, big area of interest for people. And then finally Chiron. So this like KO symbol, KO, that's the wounded healer. It's actually an asteroid that's in between Saturn and Uranus. And yeah, that shows our childhood wounding. It shows our kind of early trauma. And it shows like, the area of life where we're going to be wounded, but we're going to like overcome it and be teachers and be able to help other people with that particular wound. So that's really interesting if you're interested in kind of like inner child work or trauma. There's a lot there to look at with Chiron. So that's about the planets. Do we have any questions about that? Okay, I don't see anything, so I'll just keep going. So yeah, if there's, anything that I mentioned here that's like really standing out to you, like I would recommend like searching into it more and you'll find some interesting stuff. So I'm just going to go through the houses like quickly. I mean, all of this stuff, like I said, I usually kind of teach this over a 3-day or 3-course period, like 3-session period, like because there's just too much information. So I know that I'm going through a lot very quickly now, but hopefully it's useful. So the houses are the different areas of life, right? So we explored the signs, which are the characters, the personas, how we express our energy, the planets, the different aspects of our psyche. And now we're looking at the houses, the different areas of life. So the first house, like I mentioned, it's the rising sign. It's who you are, it's your image, how people perceive you, how you interact with the world. The second house is the house of money. So people are really interested in that one too. It shows like how you can make money, like what your abundance archetype is. That would be the sign that it's in. And your relationship to wealth, your relationship to the material world, resources. And it also has to do with self-worth, because of course, the more that we value ourselves, the more that we're going to ask, for compensation. So yeah, it has to do with self-worth and the material world and money. The third house is our kind of our immediate surroundings. It's our siblings, it's our neighbors, it's our relatives. Like I said, astrology is not just about us, it's about the people in our lives too. And it's your neighborhood. It also shows like early education, like, before university, like that K to 12 kind of like period of life and learning. And it's kind of more like introductory intro classes. Like I guess this would be kind of a third house class because it's an intro to astrology. Yeah, so that's the house of communication and the mind and learning, especially more of those kind of like introductory concepts or like more technical concepts, and our siblings and neighbors and relatives, just our immediate surroundings. And then the fourth house, that's our home. That's our physical house. That's also what we have internally as a sense of our home, sense of belonging. Our ancestry is here. Our ancestors, our roots, our emotional foundations, all there in the fourth house, and family. And the fifth house is creativity, it's hobbies, play, romance, dating, self-expression, art. It's pretty much the party house. And then the sixth house is the house of work, of our mundane reality, of our everyday, day-to-day lives. Chores, health, errands. And then, co-workers, employers, employees, that whole sphere. The seventh house, like I was mentioning with the descendant, like rising sign, ascendant, descendant. The seventh house is partnerships, relationships, long-term relationships. So like I said, the fifth house is kind of like dating, right? Seventh house is when you're getting married and having those or you're having long-term, more serious relationships with people. And this can be, of course, in the form of a spouse, or like I mentioned earlier, a business partner, or a best friend even, or like if you do one-on-one client work, that would live in this domain. So this is a very popular house. People are always curious about relationships. So if you're curious about that, check out your seventh house. And like I said, if you don't have anything in it, it's fine. You can always see what sign rules it. In this case, it's Pisces. So, okay. So then we have the eighth house. And this is the house of intimacy. And it's very deep, very psychological, this house. Kind of our traumas can live in this house as well too. It's kind of more occult, more hidden. But yeah, it's a very deep house. It's all about the soul level relationships. Yeah, very interesting house. It also rules taxes. So like I said, astrology has a very mundane level to it as well too, and shared resources, that sort of thing. And then we have the ninth house. And the ninth house is about adventure, about expanding the mind, about traveling. Yeah, just opening your mind, new philosophies, new ways of thinking, new cultures, new languages, that all lives in the ninth house. Also religion is in this space too. And then we have the 10th house, which is the house of career. And so people are often curious about this one as well. So it shows like, what kind of careers are best suited for you. It also shows, what you want to achieve in this lifetime, what you want your legacy to be, what your professional life is like, what your professional reputation is like. That all lives in the 10th house. And it's similar to the midheaven that I was talking about earlier, about like your public image. And then the 11th house, this is a house of friendships, of social circles, of community, of hopes, dreams, and wishes. So in this house, it's like where we kind of have that bigger picture of humanity. What world do we want to create, and what social causes are we moved by? That lives in the 11th house. And then the 12th house is the house of dissolution. Now we're leaving the earth plane and we're going into the astral. this is the house where, you know, all of those boundaries get blurred, kind of similar to the Neptunian energy that I was talking about in the Piscean energy. This is where, you know, you can astral travel. This is the dream world. This is fantasy. This is our imagination. Yeah, there's a lot of mystical stuff happens in the 12th house. Also, past life information is in the 12th house too. And, you know, any tendencies for escapism kind of live in that house as well too, because it is this, it's not really of this earth, right? It's kind of multi-dimensional space. So I know that was super quick. Do you guys have any questions about the houses before we move on to question and answer period?
Yeah, Denise, what's it mean when your house is empty? Like you don't have any of the planets in them?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when it's empty, it just means that that area of life that the house represents is not a major focus in this lifetime. It's still important, but like there, you know, your soul is kind of more preoccupied with the other areas that the planets are occupying.
Thank you.
Hey, Denise, Esther here.
Hi, Esther. Nice to meet you.
Likewise. This is wonderful. Thank you so much. My question is around once you fulfill the purpose of being born at that certain point in time, what happens next? If it's a certain area, like if a certain house, you have completed that in this lifetime, what happens next?
Yeah, well, I would say that the path is a spiral and there's always more lessons to come back to. Yeah, I guess it depends on which house you're talking about. Like, I mean, if you want to get a little bit more specific, you can share with us. If not, that's okay too. Like, were you thinking about a particular house?
Not currently. I've just been listening and seasoning the turkey. I'm so sorry. Yeah. This is dinner time for me here. But more like, let's say with this information, we go out and really kind of work on an area. That was more of my question. Then how do we reinterpret this? Because this is something that I'd love to look back at it from time to time and say, hey, you know, this came out and this series of events, I'm right here. So then what is next?
Yeah, exactly. That's a great question. Well, you know, I went through everything like very quickly. There's a lot of interpretations. There's a lot of associations with each house, with each planet, with each sign. So there's, you know, there's more to discover than even just like, you know, what I said. I just kind of gave like the bullet point summary kind of version of it. Yeah. And you know what, like for me, like how I see it is that, you know, healing never ends. We always go on until we pretty much merge in with the cosmic consciousness and disintegrate that way. So I feel like there's still always something to learn. There's always new layers. And especially if you have a lot of planets there, or even more than one, you know, those different planets will bring those different energies at different times. And then it depends on how those planets are relating to each other. So we have to take a look at the bigger picture as well too. So not just focused on like one planet or one house, but how does it relate to the rest of the chart? Because there can still be more lessons coming in from like different directions. But of course we can master things in our lives too. And maybe if we're feeling complete with one area, we just move on to the next area of our life. It totally depends on what's going on in the chart. I hope that helps.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for the question. All right. Okay, well, I think I'm gonna just stop sharing and just kind of come back to the group. And we have 10 minutes left. So let's open it up for some questions. If anybody else has any questions, and it's okay if you don't have anything right now, but you think of something later.
I have a question for you, Denise. So, I mean, you have your natal chart, but then sometimes you'll do a progressive chart. So when you're doing your readings, are you looking at both the natal chart and a progressive chart to see where you were born versus where you are now in that chart, I guess, if I'm getting that correct? Because things are shifting as we age and stuff like that. And our houses are changing, our planets and stuff are all changing. So are you looking at both, or would you just look at one when you're doing your readings, or what is really the difference between the two?
Yeah, this is a great question. For me personally, I just look at the natal chart, because for me that has like it's your signature. That's your energy signature, and that stays constant like throughout your life, and that's the energy that we're working with, no matter where we live, no matter what phase of life we're in. But the progressed charts, of course, are very helpful as well too. So that can kind of give you a snapshot of like, oh, okay, this is where I'm at this year. This is kind of the energies that are going to come at me this year, or like whatever time period that you're working with. So they can be very beneficial as well too. Personally, I don't do that in my readings, but I know that there for sure going to be astrologers that do that. I'm personally like very interested in the personality and archetypes and like all of that. So that's why I like working with the natal chart, because that's the blueprint, that's the template that we have. And I see the progress charts kind of showing more like, this is the energy that's currently around you, or what you might be expecting or working with at this current time. Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, I wasn't quite sure. I don't know too much about them. I just know
Yeah.
I'm going to have to get a new chart done, because my chart's a bit different than the ones you were showing there today.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
okay.
Lots to discover.
Oh yes.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Carol.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions?
Yes, I have a question about my birth time.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly what it is.
Mm-hmm.
My mom said that it was sometime around 4 a.m., but it was after 4.
Yeah.
So does that make a difference? How big a difference?
It makes
the one that I printed out just put me at 12 o'clock p.m.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's kind of like the general, if like the time isn't specified.
Okay.
But yeah, it does make a difference. And I think even like a couple of minutes sometimes makes a difference too. And that what difference it makes is the rising sign.
Right.
So what you could do is you could call the hospital. And
I don't even know if it's still up. It was in Ontario many years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I don't know if the birth certificate would have it on there, or yeah.
Sometimes you can find out by doing muscle testing as well.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
That's a good idea. Okay.
Yep. The more specific, the better. Yeah, for sure. You're welcome.
Okay.
What happens when some of your houses are so loaded?
That means that is the focus of your lifetime. Like there's a lot
I've got like 7 in my 8th house.
No wonder you're a healer. Yeah, when there are 3 or 4 more planets in a house, especially if they're the inner planets that I was telling you about, like Mars, Mercury, Venus, like
yeah, they all are.
Oh, okay, that's called.
I've got Mercury, Uranus, Pluto, Sun, Venus, Jupiter, and Velcon, something like that, all in the same house.
Yeah. So what I would search up, I'm going to type it out for you, and then you'll find out. It might be helpful. What you have is called an 8th house stellium.
Okay.
So, and anybody can search up this word stellium and just use whatever sign or house that's kind of loaded up this way. The stellium just means that it's a concentration of energy in there. So it has 3 or 4 more planets in there. So I would recommend doing some research on that. I think you might find it really interesting, Carol, especially the 8th house is like so deep and mysterious, and it's all about like psychological transformation and healing and tantra and like soul connections. It's like very, very potent. Yeah, so I mean, it just shows that your work is there.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
I've been brought into this life for challenges, that's for sure. Okay, that's great to know. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Denise, I was noticing that you also offer astrocartography. I'm just curious to hear more about that.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, I love astrocartography. So astrocartography finds out where in the world is the best energy for you for love, for career, for family. or just for your own self-expression. And it also shows the spots of the world that don't have good energy for you either, like places maybe you should avoid, or just not spend too much time there, or just visit but don't live. Like it's all about finding those spots of the world that have the best energy for you. So I love doing those readings. And astro.com like generates that like map, and it shows like all the lines, all the planets. It like creates a map over the map of where the planetary lines are running for you specifically. But it is definitely overwhelming. That's why I like doing readings for people, so I can say, okay, this is what we're going to focus on. Like, let's find out whatever the client wants to know, like whether it's love or career, or like if they're just curious, like if they're moving and or they want to travel. Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
And how is that related to past lives, or is like
you can find out past life stuff through that? Yeah, like the places that have like karmic connections.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And actually those spots of the world, they're good to visit, but they're not good to live in, just because the energy it's too intense.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Did you want to ask your question?
Oh yeah. Is the North Node, that's related to the cartography, not the natal chart, right?
The natal chart is related to the cartography. So what astrocartography does, it pretty much takes your natal chart and puts it over top of the world.
Okay.
And like, remember I was talking about like the rising sign and everything, like it just takes, like it looks at pretty much like if you were born in this place, what would your energy be like? If you were born in this place, what would your energy be like? So that's how it does the reading.
So is the North Node on the natal chart?
It is, yeah. It's the horseshoe symbol.
The horseshoe. Oh, okay, I missed that part. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Denise, I know we have to run, so this has been super awesome. Thank you,
Thank you
so much. I've learned 1,000% more than an hour and a half ago. So it really.
Oh, thank you so much for coming. I'm so glad that you joined us, and yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Much. Be well. Nice to meet everybody else.
Take
Bye.
care. All right.
I have another question.
Sure.
How did you get started in astrology?
That's a great question, Esther. I've always liked astrology, like even as a kid, like, you know, reading the like little astrology books, or like, oh, what's Libra like? What's that? And so I've always been curious. But it was when I was 19 years old, I saw my birth chart for the first time. And yeah, like I just had a friend, like that was the first time I met him, and he just asked me, oh, what's your birth time? I'm like, oh, what? And then he shows me the chart. What am I even looking at? He starts explaining it, and then it was just like resonating, and I'm like, okay, I need to look into this more. And so that was, yeah, like over 10 years ago. And then since then I was just like studying my charts, started doing charts for my friends, and then yeah, it's amazing. It's a very powerful tool. And even now, like even after studying it for more than 10 years, it's like there's still more layers, and it's like really a powerful tool for self-discovery that I find, because you're working with symbolism and archetypes. And yeah.
Thanks for sharing. That's amazing.
Yeah, thanks for asking. Okay, great. Well, everybody can definitely like reach out to me, send me an email if anything else kind of comes up. Otherwise, yeah, like I offer one-on-one readings where I will go over your chart with you, and we'll dive deep together. And like, if you have any specific questions, we can do that. I offer readings with reports and without reports, and in person and online. I do the in-person sessions from here at Less Stress in Calgary. And I have a special discount for everybody who joined today. So check the last page of the report to find out more information about that. And yeah, otherwise I'm wanting to do a 3-part astrology course. And there's a special discount for everybody who's joined here today as well too, where I go even deeper into this stuff. So we'll have more time, and then there'll be more time for like question and answer as well too. So it'll be kind of like you're getting a reading and learning at the same time. So yeah, let me know if that would be something you're interested in. Yeah, I would love to see you guys there. That's December 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. all at 10 a.m. in the morning. It'll also be recorded. It'll also be online, so you can kind of tune in at your leisure, and there'll be worksheets and handouts, so it'll be a little bit more interactive and in-depth. So if anyone's curious about learning more about their charts and astrology in general, would love to see you guys there.
All right, thanks.
Yeah, thank you. So
Thank you, Denise.
you're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you so much. And yeah, reach out to me if you have any questions. We've reached our time, so I love you all. Thank you so much for participating, and have a good evening or day wherever you are.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ooh,